Nearly there. Okay.
Live stream. Here we go.
All going. Great.
Brilliant.
Okay. Let's get moving. Okay, so thank you everybody for bearing with us. We are going to speak to you about chair work now. So I'm joined by my lovely colleague, Kate. Kate, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'll bring up the next slide because we've got some nice pictures, haven't we? I'm assuming, Jo, you've introduced yourself. So I'll just give my little introduction as to who I am. So I'm Kate Williams. I'm a clinical psychologist and also an advanced schema therapist, supervisor and trainer. And Jo and I both run individual schema therapy training course together. So schematherapyworks.co.uk. Which is great to get to work with Jo and collaborate on schema therapy so regularly and so often. And I'm really grateful to be here. And thank you, Jo, for all you've done in hosting the day today. It's really exciting to be alongside you presenting. So a little bit about me. I trained in schema therapy after working in adult mental health for many years. For me, schema therapy has provided me with a really effective framework for working with complex mental health presentations. And I've really valued the model for working with both directly with clients in therapy, but also indirectly with staff teams. It's also been a model that I've really valued in terms of working with consultation and staff supervision with staff teams. So I found it really helpful in a range of different contexts. I've worked for over 20 years in NHS settings in the UK, although I did leave the NHS roughly 3 years ago. But I've specialised in working with more complex, high-risk, complex mental health presentations, and I found schema a really effective model for working with those presentations. I've also worked independently and in the public sector settings, offering consultation, training, and supervision to a range of different professionals. So that's me. It's lovely to be here.
Gosh, and I've just had another technical challenge, and that my Canva presentation has just closed down on me. So I'm going to open that up again. It's because my computer's downloading videos and it's doing all of the hard work that us not being able to share sound is creating. So do you want to skip us on to the next slide, Kate, whilst I bring up my my notes? Just coming up now. My poor computer is going, you're making me do too much work. So the aims of our session today are about understanding chair work. So chair work is one of the experiential exercises that we use within schema therapy, and why and how we use it. Obviously, chair work is a tool that's used in lots of other approaches as well. Because it's such a powerful experiential tool, but we'll think about how we use it in schema therapy. And we are also going to think about how we work with a protector mode using chair work. So Jill and Helen helpfully gave us a great role plays and demonstrations of how we use chair work with the critic mode, and we're going to be focusing on protector mode, which is one of the coping modes. And we're going to reflect on how it can help clients like Sarah. So Sarah is our case example that we've used during the training, a fictional example that we've come up with. And just another note that this webinar isn't a skills training in chair work. Our goal is to be able to introduce you to the concepts and give you a sense of how it can be applied in practice. Okay, I'm just going to get my notes up so that I make sure that I cover everything. Here we go. So we're going to start off with a little poll. So have you used chair work in your sessions? So let me just launch the poll. Experience of chair work, there we go. So we've got, results coming in. So we've got, let's end that and share the results. Do you want to just talk through those a second for me, Kate, so that I can get my presenter view up?
So the poll, I'm assuming people can't see it. So the poll we've got.
They can, yeah.
45% have never used Chairwork, 37% infrequently, 15% regularly, and 3% all the time. So we've got about 18% of people who are kind of dipping their toes into using Chairwork quite consistently. And then I can't add 45 and 37 really quickly, but more who haven't used Chairwork. So hopefully today is a really good opportunity to give you a bit of a flavour about what Chairwork looks like in schema therapy and how we use it with the coping modes.
Thanks, Kate. Okay, so what is Chairwork? Chairwork is an experiential technique. We use physical chairs to represent different parts of the self or different modes. If you remember from my introduction, we talked about the vulnerable child mode, critic modes, coping modes, and the healthy modes. And so we use physical chairs to represent those different parts. And we can use Chairwork to create a dialogue between those parts, which encourages clients to externalize and speak from different sides of themselves. So if you imagine being that critical part of you, you might put the critic into a chair, and I'll ask my clients to speak to me about the critic's thoughts on a particular event. We also use Chairwork to increase awareness, so it helps clients to recognize those self-defeating ways of coping, of understanding their unmet needs, understanding self-critical voices. So when we, for example, get a client to play the critic mode, we then might invite them to sit in the vulnerable child chair and experience the messages of the critic mode to help clients to become aware of the negative impact that those messages, the critic messages, are having on themselves. And so when the individual gets caught in that self-critical thinking, the Chairwork exercise can help to give them awareness of the impact that has on them. Chairwork's about promoting change. So we want to strengthen that healthy adult mode by fostering empathy and balance and new perspectives, and giving people that sort of broader awareness of themselves and really tapping into self-compassion. So maybe self-compassion towards one of the coping modes. I keep shutting down in these moments, but I can also understand how this helped me when I was little. And it's a therapist-guided process. It's structured and it's supportive. Okay, can you swap the slides? So, ways of using Chairwork in schema therapy. So as I've talked about, we have mode dialogues. So I often use these little nesting dolls in my sessions because I work quite a lot online. But we might be trying to facilitate conversations between different modes. So if we've got a very strong critic mode that's critically speaking to the vulnerable child, we might bring in the healthy adult mode, a chair for the healthy adult mode to put in boundaries with that critic. So we can use chairs to help kind of position and protect different parts of the self. We also use Chairwork for mode mapping. So chairs are used to bring a repeating pattern to life. So in schema therapy, we're always looking at those long-standing life patterns relating to the self, relating to other people. And that's what we're working on shifting. And so we use drawn out mode maps to depict a pattern that repeats for somebody. But we can also set out chairs to help us to sort of bring that pattern to life and help somebody recognise when they're flipping from mode to mode. For example, if somebody struggles when they receive feedback, We might set out a chair for the vulnerable child that feels sad when they receive that feedback. And then maybe the critic mode is coming in. So we have a chair for the critic mode that creates giving shameful messages. It might be shame that comes up for the vulnerable child then. And then maybe an angry protector part comes in and says, well, your opinion doesn't mean anything to me anyway. About kind of pushing that person away, distancing that person from the vulnerability of the vulnerable child. And so we can set chairs out to help us to depict patterns that are repeating for individuals. We might use the chair work to confront a critic mode. So externalising the punitive critic and challenging it, that might be one way. And also supporting people to relinquish their coping modes. So interviewing and negotiating with a coping mode to get needs met more readily. Okay, so thinking about chair work online, as I said, I do lots of my work online, and so we don't have the luxury of lots of chairs that we can physically move around it in one room together with my client, but it's absolutely possible to do chair work online with your clients. I have a chair in my room for the client's critic mode, or we get the client to move from one position to another within their room to depict different modes. And I'm going to be running a workshop on the 6th of March next year if you would like to learn more about how to do chair work online, because it can feel a little bit like clunky in terms of how do we do this? But it's absolutely possible.
Okay, so what we're going to do today, we're talking specifically about how you use Chairwork with a schema coping mode. Okay, so I'm going to just talk to you a little bit about what do we mean by coping modes from a schema therapy point of view. So schema therapy thinks about coping modes as essentially short-term survival strategies. They're the ways we protect ourselves from the emotional pain that comes from unmet needs and early schemas. In other words, they're the parts of us that learned very early on how to cope instead of feel. So when a child doesn't have access to safe connection or comfort, they can't express their emotions openly or rely on others to meet their needs. So they adapt. They find ways to survive that emotional environment. And in that moment, those strategies are incredibly adaptive. They help the child stay safe. And often they were the only choice the child had. But the challenge is these coping strategies often become maladaptive in adult life. The same strategies that once protected us now block our access to emotions, to our emotional needs, and to intimacy. They keep us safe, but they can also keep us stuck. The schema therapy groups coping modes into 3 broad styles. It talks about coping modes of surrender, where we give in to the schema. We accept the schema is true and behave accordingly. Avoidance, where we shut down, detach, or distract to avoid the pain associated with the schema. Or we might overcompensate, where we fight against the schema, trying to prove it wrong through control, perfectionism, or dominance. So we've got a case study, as Jo mentioned, of somebody called Sarah. So she's a made-up case study. But with Sarah, her main coping mode is an avoidant coping mode. It's a coping mode we call the detached protector mode. Now, the detached protector mode is a mode that disconnects. It cuts off from emotion, from vulnerability, cuts off from other people. And it can look calm and in control from the outside. But inside, it's protecting against deep feelings of fear, sadness, or shame. Okay. So our task as therapists is to understand this mode, not to confront it aggressively or try and get rid of it, but get curious about what it's trying to protect. Okay, so let's introduce you to Sarah. As we mentioned, we've got this case study of Sarah to use some role plays to work through chair work and working with a coping mode. So Sarah was referred to therapy by her GP following complaints of persistent low mood, chronic feelings of emptiness, and difficulties in her personal relationships. She reports feeling fine most of the time, but admits to frequent episodes of numbness and disconnection, particularly when situations call for emotional closeness. She describes others often telling her she seems hard to read or she's closed off. And Sarah can find herself withdrawing when her friends or her colleagues attempt to try and engage with her emotionally. She often uses work or practical tasks as distractions, and she has difficulty identifying her own emotional needs. She frequently insists, I'm okay, even when she's experiencing distress. So Sarah presents as calm, capable, and fine most of the time, but when we listen closely, we hear how often she disconnects, how she turns to work and those practical tasks to avoid emotional closeness. And that's the detached protector in action. It might look functional on the outside, but it's really defended on the inside. So as we've mentioned, Sarah's main schema coping mode is that detached protector coping mode. So if we look a bit more closely at what we mean by this coping mode, the detached protector's function is to cut off needs and feelings and to distance the person from emotional connection. It's a safety strategy. Its job is to prevent emotional overwhelm, rejection, or shame. When this mode is active, the person appears calm, composed. They might even seem detached or a little bit bored. But beneath that, there's often a lot going on emotionally, feelings that have been pushed out of awareness. So if you think about the defining features, you might recognize a detached protector when a client seems emotionally shut down or they're intellectualizing. They might talk about a distressing experience in a really matter-of-fact way, or they might shift quickly to analyzing rather than connecting to feeling. And this is what we see with Sarah. She's articulate, she's thoughtful, and she's rational. But when we invite her into moments of emotional connection, she can become really distant or flat. And she uses work and busyness to stay in control, but that control comes at a cost. The common behaviours. In practice, the detached protector can show up as an over-reliance on thinking or analysis, that intellectualizing, a disconnection from the body, sense of being numb or not there, or avoidance through work, screens, humour, maybe using alcohol or withdrawing from people. And importantly, the detached protector blocks access to the vulnerable child mode. That's the part that holds deep feelings of sadness, fear, or longing. It's the way the person has of keeping their system safe by cutting off from that. So when we meet the detached protector mode in therapy, our therapeutic stance is crucial. We don't treat it as resistance or something to overcome. We meet it with empathy and curiosity. We validate that it's trying to protect the client. It's just overdoing its job. The key message here is the detached protector isn't the enemy. It's a loyal but exhausted part of the self that learned from very early on feelings were dangerous. So our work is to help the client feel safe enough to let their detached protector step aside. And then they can make room for their vulnerable child mode to emerge. And we'll see in the next part, the detached protector doesn't just block emotion, it can stop us from truly knowing ourselves. It cuts us off from our needs, our identity, and our capacity for connection. That's why interviewing this mode in Chairwork can be so powerful. It helps the client begin to see this mode not as who they are, but as part of them that can be understood, can be negotiated, and eventually released. So this slide summarises how the detached protector tends to think, feel, and behave. So what it says, the messages are like, emotions are painful, it's better not to feel, expressing feelings is dangerous. And these statements tell us this mode sees emotions as a threat, something to avoid rather than engage with. How it feels, in this mode, clients often feel numb, empty, or flat. Some clients describe not really feeling real or being behind a glass. They might describe feeling spaced out or bored when they're in this mode. How it tends to act. So in this mode, the detached protector is disconnecting. It's numbing out, going spacey. It might be that the person starts to use humour to deflect. Sometimes they might retreat into sleep or overwork or that analysis, thinking about being intellectualizing all of the time. They're all ways of avoiding that emotional contact. And often the underlying schemas in this mode are linked to things like emotional deprivation, emotional inhibition, or a fear of losing control. Essentially, those early experiences that taught the person that emotion wasn't safe or acceptable. And finally, what it needs. The detached protector needs reassurance that it's safe to feel. It needs to learn that emotions can be tolerated, that feeling doesn't mean losing control, and that connection doesn't always lead to rejection and hurt. So this slide helps us go a little bit deeper into understanding the function and experience of the detached protector mode. Its function is to detach from emotions, to block out vulnerability, so the person doesn't have to feel overwhelmed or unsafe. It's trying to protect the vulnerable child mode from painful emotion, these feelings of sadness, fear, shame, or rejection, by cutting off feeling altogether. So the intention is protective, but the impact is often costly. So thinking about triggers, the detached protector is often triggered by any situation where intense emotions might arise, either in the moment or in anticipation of them. It can also activate when memories of trauma or emotional distress are stirred up, or when someone encounters people or places that are linked to painful experiences. So thinking about our client Sarah, this can show up when her friends try to connect with her emotionally. Even the anticipation of closeness can trigger detachment for her, trigger that familiar numbing or sense of distance for her. So we move on to struggles. The irony is that this disconnection that was meant to be protective, often increases distress over time. Disconnection from the self leads to emptiness and a sense of identity loss. So people can start to feel hollow or unsure of who they really are or what they want. Sometimes a lack of identity can also lead to what we call the chameleon effect, blending in with others, adapting to fit, but really feeling inauthentic, not really knowing who they are. And in more extreme cases, that inner emptiness might drive self-harming behaviours, not because somebody's feeling suicidal, but because they're so cut off from emotions, they might be just attempting to feel something when that numbness becomes unbearable. Now, detached protector mode sometimes can show up as a different flavour, different subtypes. So what different subtypes of a detached protector mode might you encounter? So there's a flavour of a detached self-soother, which is where the detached protector turns to things like alcohol, food, or screens for comfort. Or a detached self-stimulator, where you're seeking stimulation through risk or sensation seeking just to feel alive. And then there's also a detached fantasy world mode, which retreats into an imagination or online worlds in order to escape reality. There are some different flavours of what a detached protector could look like. But it's also helpful for us to think about what a detached protector isn't. So sometimes a detached protector can be mistaken for another coping mode, the avoidant protector. But that coping mode is more about physical avoidance, things like walking away, not showing up. Whereas the detached protector is much more about psychological, emotional avoidance. The body's here, but the person has emotionally checked out. Can also at times look a bit like the vulnerable child mode because both can seem helpless. But the difference is the vulnerable child feels deeply. You're seeing those emotions, you're witnessing those feelings. While in a detached protector mode, you're feeling nothing. That's the defense in action. So understanding these nuances helps us meet this mode with precision and compassion. And what we want to do, rather than confronting or labeling it as resistance, we want to recognize it as a creative, protective adaptation. One that helped the client survive initially when they were small, but now in adulthood, it's keeping them stuck. It's keeping them from connection and authenticity. So in the next section, what we're going to do is going to walk through how to work with this mode in Chairwork, how to engage it safely, how to validate its purpose, and begin negotiating space for that vulnerable child mode to start to emerge. Okay, so when we're thinking about Chairwork with a protector mode, it's really important to remember that these parts have a defensive and guarding function. Their core purpose is to minimize feelings of vulnerability, minimize feelings of fear, sadness, or anger. It's not trying to create problems, it's trying to protect the person from emotional pain. So a protector mode acts a bit like a shield. It steps in to prevent the client from feeling overwhelmed by the intensity of that vulnerable child mode's emotions, or from them being attacked by those critic modes, like a punitive critic mode or demanding critic mode. So in that sense, it's trying to keep the client safe from both inner and outer threats. So as I mentioned earlier, schema coping modes think about coping modes with 3 different styles to manage emotions. So they might avoid, they might surrender, or they might overcompensate. So the protector modes, like the detached protector mode, they're primarily avoidance coping modes. They rely on distance, so cutting off or numbing, to keep emotional intensity under control. So in therapy, our aim isn't to get rid of a protector, it's to understand it. I joked earlier on about, the stress that came from us not being able to get the video, the sound going with the videos, and you can see how in a situation like that, disconnecting from maybe some of the emotions of panic that are coming up could be quite adaptive. So that's why when we're working with our coping mode, we want to kind of have a bit more of a flexible relationship with it. We don't want to get rid of them completely, but we want to understand the maladaptive nature of them. We want to understand it. We want to make the client aware of how it's operating, aware of how it's showing up, noticing how it protects, how it can be helpful, but also noticing its limitations, noticing how, in particular with the detached protector, how it's limiting emotional connection and growth. So once the client can see it clearly, we can then move into negotiation, finding a way past the protector mode so we can start to access those underlying emotions and needs of a vulnerable child mode. And this is where our chair work becomes so useful. Giving the protector its own voice, literally its own chair, helps externalize it. So both therapist and client can see it as one part of the self rather than the whole person. So from there, we can start to build that dialogue. We can validate its intentions. We can understand what it's afraid of. And most importantly, we can start to gradually create space for vulnerability and connection. So just to remind you, working with the protector mode isn't about confrontation. It's about curiosity and compassion. By recognizing that this mode has been working hard to keep the person safe, we can invite collaboration rather than conflict. And that's exactly what we're going to explore next. We're going to look at how to interview the protector mode step by step. Okay. So we've got 3 aims in our chair work with coping modes. And we're going to be working through these 3 aims and 3 steps with you. So in step 1, we want to bring awareness to the coping mode itself to help the client recognize when it's active and to understand what it's trying to do. And we do this by interviewing the mode. In step 2, we aim to reconnect with the client's vulnerable child mode to uncover the needs and the emotions that the coping mode has been protecting or blocking. And finally, in step 3, we work to negotiate with the coping mode, empathically confronting how it gets in the way of those needs being met, but also validating its protective purpose. The goal is not to eliminate the coping mode, it's to help trust that there are healthier ways for the person to stay safe and connected. And so what we're going to do is we're going to work through these 3 steps by showing you 3 separate videos with our case study of Sarah. So let's look at the first step, interviewing the coping mode. So as I just mentioned, the first thing we want to do in chair work with the protector mode is to spot and name it in the session. This is the first action in step 1. When we notice the coping response, for example, as you're going to see in our case study with Sarah, when she starts to detach or when she's intellectualizing, we're going to gently name it with her. So you name it with the client. It feels like your detached protector mode might have just stepped in. They're starting to really explicitly notice it and name it. We then invite the client to move in to the coping mode chair, explaining that this helps us explore that part more fully. From there, we interview the mode, asking about its function, its origins, and what it's trying to protect. We stay curious about how it helps, but we also explore the costs of staying in that role. Finally, we bring the client back to their original chair to reflect on what emerged, noticing any shifts in awareness or emotion. Okay, so what we're going to do is going to show you a short video role play that brings this process to life. So you can see how the therapist identifies, engages, and begins to understand Sarah's detached protector in action. So the video role play I'm going to show you now, or Joe's going to show you, demonstrates step 1, interviewing the protector mode. In this clip, you're going to see the therapist gently spot and name Sarah's detached protector. The therapist is going to invite her to move into that chair and begin exploring what this mode is trying to do for her. And as you're watching, pay attention to how the therapist maintains curiosity and empathy and how they start to uncover the protector's function without challenging it too soon.
Thanks, Kate. Okay, let's see if we can get this shared. Kate, if you can just let me know if you can hear it.
How's work been this week?
Is it loud enough?
Same old, really. Well, I don't think we need to really talk about it, Joe. It's been another one of those really stressful weeks, but it's probably better off we just leave that part of that one and focus on some other stuff.
Sarah, I wonder whether there might be a mode going on here. Maybe that detached protector, that part of you that's there to stop you from feeling things. I wonder if that might be coming up right now.
Because I don't want to talk about work.
Huh? Yeah.
I get, maybe.
Do you think we can do some work with that today?
If you think it would be helpful, I mean, I don't really want to talk about work because it's been really stressful.
And I think that would be a really good reason for us to do some work with this mode, because I'd really like to be able to support you with things that are stressful.
Okay. I know you've been trying to think with me about how I talk about the difficult stuff, so I guess it's a bit into that stuff maybe. Okay. Alright, if you think it's going to be helpful, what are you thinking?
Okay, well, I was thinking about some chair work, and I wondered whether you might move over into this seat and be that detached protector part of you.
Okay, so that's that chair what we've been talking about then?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Alright. Okay. So you want
We can do it together.
Do you want me to move?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Right.
moving over into this seat.
Okay. Alright.
When you're sitting there, I want you to be that detached part of you, this part of you that says everything's fine, you don't want to talk about it.
Do you want me to be the part
I
that
want
doesn't
you
want to talk about stuff?
Be that part.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
And we're going to think about your role in Sarah's life and how you've been trying to help her.
Okay.
Okay?
Right. Okay. And you want me to talk like that? Like
Talk
a part?
like that part. Yeah. So
Talk
you're like,
about Sarah?
So you're embodying that part.
Okay, it's going to be a bit strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't worry too much about the language, but just trying to get yourself into that position of being this part of you that says it's fine.
Okay.
Don't want to talk about the stressful things. Okay?
Okay.
So, detached protector. I'd really like to get to know a bit about you. And I wonder, how are you helping Sarah? When you come in as that part of her that says, no, it's all fine, I don't want to talk about it. How are you helping Sarah?
Well, I guess I can think about what just happened then.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a really, really rough week. And I guess I'm showing up because I don't want Sarah to have to go to a really painful, difficult place. Maybe that's why.
Okay, so you're not wanting Sarah to have to feel the difficult emotions?
Yeah.
Yeah? So you're there to cut her off from the emotions? What do you do with the feelings?
I'm doing it now. Breathing in. I think it's almost like I can breathe in and then just like zip it up. Yeah, I don't want to go there. Don't want to go there. So it's like zipping it up, zipping her away from it.
That's a really good description. Maybe we call this the zip up mode. The part of you that zips up emotions so you don't have to go places that feel tricky.
Zip up. Zip up. It's easy to remember than detached protector. Is that what
Yeah.
Yes,
It's nice to have your own name for the mode. Okay, so there's part of you that you're there to zip those emotions up, push them away so Sarah doesn't have to connect with them. Yeah, what would be hard about connecting with those emotions?
I know know you wouldn't. I don't think you would, but I guess it's making me think. I know I did it yesterday. So I had the same type of situation yesterday when my friend Emma, you know Emma. So Emma came over and she said to me, "How's work been?" And I noticed doing that breathing in, zipping up thing. And I think if I think about with Emma, I just didn't want her to tell me I was being dramatic, was being over the top, I was being pathetic. So I think even though lots has gone on this week, I didn't really want to tell her because I was just a bit scared, a bit afraid that she'd tell me that I was just being too much and that I was just stupid. So,
Gosh, so you're there because you worry that if Sarah was to show her emotions that people might say you're too much, that you're being silly. Yeah, they might be critical of you for showing your feelings.
No, I think that is right. So I mean, I don't want to go there. I don't want Sarah to have to feel it because it's horrible. But I think it's more than that. I think, like thinking about with Emma yesterday, I think I was just really scared that if I told her how shit it had been at work, she would just sort of tell me I was just being ridiculous and that it was silly.
Why would you think that might happen? Has there been anything that's happened in your life when you were little that that gave you this job to zip up emotions? Were there things that happened to little Sarah that meant that you've taken on this role to hide emotions away?
You know, it's only when I was just thinking about the breathing bit. I know we talked a little bit before about my mum and my dad and how shitty they were, but it's reminded me of when I used to do this thing when I was a kid. I don't know if it fits, but I used to do this thing as a kid where I just used to do this. You know when you get that feeling like you want to cry in your throat? I really remember going like that just to swallow the cry, just to make sure I didn't cry. And it was because if I ever showed mum and dad, or mum in particular, but even dad as well, if I ever showed them that I was sad or if I cried, they would just tell me I was pathetic. They would tell me I was stupid. And I can just remember mum once, when I was crying or wanted to cry, she was just shaking me and just telling me, "Oh, just stop it, you stop it." So I just learned not to show them, not to tell them how I was feeling. So that breathing in was a really good way of like, no, it's gone, and then I just carry on.
Gosh, no wonder you've stepped into Sarah's life to look after her when you had such horrible experiences when you were little, when you were feeling really sad and vulnerable and you'd get shaken or told to pull yourself together.
Yeah, and I really made that link before about that breathing, but I remember really clearly when I was a kid, breathing in, and that's what I do it now. I know I did it with Emma and I did it a bit with you as well.
It's really great that you're spotting that. It sounds like a really good clue that this zipped up part of you is there, that breathing in that you do. And we're starting to understand why.
Yeah.
Actually, you've played a really, really important role in Sarah's life, protecting her when she's feeling vulnerable emotions. I wonder if there's any downsides though.
I guess downsides. It just I almost don't really think about doing like that. I'm doing it. It's only really now that you're sort of forcing me to think about it. We've had a really crap week this week, and I knew we were going to come here and I was going to talk to you about things, but I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to talk about it. Because with Emma yesterday, I was worried about her telling me I was stupid. But you remember feeling is that when I said, "No, I'm fine to Emma," she then started talking about her puppy. She got a new puppy, so she started to just totally go into all of that, tell me all about that puppy and how the puppy's been, and I just found myself thinking, okay, what about me? And I quickly moved on from that, but I guess I could really have done with someone just knowing about how shit the week had been, even though I didn't want to talk about it, like when she went, I mean, it sounds really silly, but I just felt really alone. I just felt really, a little bit like I've been, abandoned might be a bit too strong a word, maybe, I don't know. But I just felt really lonely. I felt really lonely, like no one got it. No one gets me. No one's interested. So, I don't know, I guess that's a downside to it, maybe? I don't know.
Well done. I can hear that little part of you actually talking and saying that it's quite lonely and you're feeling abandoned, and the real downsides of that part of you is that people don't understand and they don't see what's going on for you and they're not able to support you. And I experience that too. There's times when I would really like to be able to support you, and you step in and you're helping Sarah to survive by zipping up, but it's stopping you from getting your needs met.
I do make your job hard sometimes, don't I? I know that sometimes you come and ask me how I am, and it's fine. A bit like just then, I guess. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Okay. You're doing brilliantly.
Okay. Hopefully that sound worked okay and you're all able to hear. Kate, would you mind sharing the video again? The slides, I mean, sorry.
Screen. I'll go back. I didn't share the right screen. 1 moment. There we go. Can you see it okay?
I can.
There we go.
Thank you. So let me just bring up my notes. Okay, so we just looked at a coping mode interview. So using Chairwork to explore and understand that detached protector coping mode, which is an avoidant coping mode. And now we're going to focus on the vulnerable child mode and how we connect with this mode using Chairwork. So the vulnerable child is the core of everything in schema therapy. We're trying to connect with this mode, understand what the individual needs, understand what their emotional needs are and how they're feeling and how we can get those needs met. It's the storehouse of the schemas. And the vulnerable child holds our painful memories of early experiences, distressing emotions, and often intense sensations. It's where we hold our trauma. And people often want to detach from their vulnerable child mode by ignoring it, shutting it down, or trying to get rid of it because they don't want to reconnect with these feelings. And when they do reconnect with the feelings, they feel overwhelmed. And so you'll often hear us talking in sessions about what do you need? This is where we're asking our clients to connect with their vulnerable child mode, to connect with their emotional needs. Okay, if you can go to the next slide, please, Kate. The whole point of schema therapy is to heal the vulnerable child. So when we talk about healing the vulnerable child, we mean to sort of process the traumatic memories that led to the schemas developing, that when they're triggered, the vulnerable child comes forward because they're overwhelmed with the emotions. We are not expecting the vulnerable child mode never to be triggered again, not in any way, but we're working on processing early memories so that when the vulnerable child mode does get triggered, it's within the window of tolerance, so the individual can continue to manage and regulate themselves. And so we need to reduce the maladaptive coping strategies so that we can access the vulnerable child. So if you saw in that video, then Sarah was using her zipped up mode to sort of hide the vulnerable child away. And for the vulnerable child to get their needs met, then we need to be able to connect with them and get past that coping mode. And so we're trying to support people to use healthy coping strategies from the healthy adult mode, bringing in things like compassion to look after the feelings and meet the unmet needs. And we're also trying to reduce the impact of critic modes. So often again, vulnerable child mode gets triggered, critic mode often comes along with that because the critic is focused on feelings and needs, and often means the coping mode steps in. The coping mode is there to sort of help the individual manage what's going on backstage with the vulnerable child and the critic mode. And so we're trying to turn the volume down on the critic mode so that we can support the vulnerable child. And so this creates space for little Sarah, for the vulnerable child to heal from past memories, to learn to tolerate intense emotions and experience feelings of safety and comfort as adults. Okay, thanks, Kate. So the vulnerable child might say, no one wants me, I'm all alone, I can't handle this. They might feel sad and scared, lonely and ashamed. They might act in an upset, fearful, helpless way, unable to take care of themselves. Most of the schemas and link into the vulnerable child. It's the schema storehouse. And the vulnerable child needs connection and validation, reassurance and support. Okay, next slide, Kate. And so their function is about to be and to feel. They can be triggered by the activation of any maladaptive schemas. You find with your clients that there'll be regular patterns of triggers. So when you know that somebody has an abandonment schema, for example, then any insecurity within their relationships is likely to activate the vulnerable child mode. And struggles, the vulnerable child doesn't know how to get its needs met. Its purpose is to feel. And there are various subtypes depending on which of the schemas are being activated most for the vulnerable child. So there's an abandoned child, linking in with that abandonment schema, so a fear that the relationship's not going to last, that there's insecurity. Abused child, mistrust and abuse schema, so this sense that other people are intentionally going to hurt me. Lonely child links in with an emotional deprivation schema, so where the individual's emotional needs haven't been attuned to, they haven't been nurtured or protected. And defective child, where the defectiveness schema is really strong, so this sense that I'm bad, there's something broken about me. And so in this next step, so we've got another video for you, we're using Chairwork to connect with the vulnerable child mode. So this could be used within the same session as the first exercise, flowing along, or it can be used as a standalone exercise by itself. And so the first step of this, of connecting with the vulnerable child, is to introduce a chair for the vulnerable child and ask to connect with this part. Now, Kate is kindly playing a very compliant client for me so that we can demonstrate the steps to you very easily. Not all clients find it easy to connect with their vulnerable child. In fact, often that is a massive challenge, or when they connect with their vulnerable child, they feel totally overwhelmed. And so when, in our core training, we think more about ways in which we help people to connect with their vulnerable child when they struggle with that, or how to help people to regulate themselves when their vulnerable child overwhelms them. So the first step, we introduce the vulnerable child chair and ask to connect with the part. And then we explore the feelings and needs about the situation and validate. And then go on in step 3 to reflect on advantages and disadvantages of the ways in which they're coping and they're shutting down the vulnerable child, and the impact that has on their needs and their feelings. Step 4 is about showing compassion to the vulnerable child to demonstrate how compassion can help when feelings are shared. So instead of, what automatically will happen often with clients, the critic mode comes in. As soon as they feel anything, as soon as there's activation in the vulnerable child, the critic mode steps in. And so we're trying to help to offer that limited reparenting and help clients recognise, okay, if I validate myself, if I show myself compassion, that helps to regulate me. That helps me to process what's going on. And then if you're finishing the exercise there, instead of moving on to step 3, which we'll show you afterwards, you might review the exercise from the healthy adult position. Okay. Kate, do you want to? Thank you. Stop sharing and I will share again. Let's check this video is going. Was it loud enough the last time?
I could hear it okay, but
Okay,
I'm
great.
conscious others might have other.
Oh. Okay. Let's share this.
Thanks so much for being that zipped up part of you. So you've just been describing to us about the role that you played for Sarah, how much you've been helping her, but also we've been thinking about some of the downsides, particularly for that vulnerable Sarah, the Sarah that feels all the feelings. Yeah, that there's some consequences for her of you being here. So I wonder if we can connect with that little part of you now.
Okay.
Yeah, so this means swapping chairs and leaving that zipped up part of you in your current chair.
Right, okay.
And moving over here and connecting with the little part of you.
Okay, so that little Sarah,
Yeah, the part of you that feels...
Do you want me to move?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so connecting with the little part of you. The little part of you that you might be feeling sad or scared or punished.
It's a bit uncomfortable, I think.
Yeah, of course it does. Of course it does. It's hard, isn't it, connecting with those vulnerable feelings, and considering everything that you've just told me, actually it's hard connecting with that with me in the room. So that might feel quite scary. I'm worried about how I might react to that. Just taking a moment.
I just know I'm much better at doing that.
Yeah, and that part's been playing a really important role in your life, hasn't it? It's been protecting you. All those times when you're feeling vulnerable, that part's just jumped in, zipped those feelings up so that nobody knows how you're feeling, and then nobody can criticise you or dismiss you. Yeah, but I wonder how it feels. What it feels like for you. Part of you that has needs and emotions when the zipped up part just jumps in. Perhaps thinking about the situation with your friend Emma.
So, I don't know. I know I do it to keep myself safe. So, I guess the need is it does protect me, but I think, what that conversation we just had over there is really, I know it anyway, but I think what it really highlighted is it just means I never get a chance to talk about how I feel, and I don't like doing it. I find it really uncomfortable. But with Emma yesterday, I know that when she left, I ended up feeling really, really lonely, and like no one understands, like no one cares. I don't want to sound really dramatic, but it just feels like I'm not really on my own with all of this, and I don't just want to sad about it.
You're doing really well, Sarah. Doing really well connecting with those feelings. Of course it feels sad. Of course you feel sad and lonely. Like people don't get the chance to understand you.
Yeah.
I'm sat here. I want you to connect with these feelings so that I can support you. Yeah, you're doing brilliantly. So, you feel sad, lonely. Yeah, you want to be understood.
Yeah, I feel really nice.
And when that zipped up part steps in, is it helping with that?
No, it isn't. I don't know. Well, like I said, it's almost automatic. It does mean I don't have to risk somebody telling me I'm being stupid or over the top or dramatic. But I definitely don't ever feel like anyone ever understands me. I always feel like I'm alone with this stuff. And it just feels like a lot.
Yeah. And I want to help you with this. I'm here. I'm here and I want to support you.
Yeah.
I don't want you to be feeling this all by yourself. And that's why I'm encouraging you to connect with these feelings and show them to me so that I can support you. Yeah. I wonder what you really need when you're feeling this way.
I think, I don't know, someone just to tell me it'll be okay. Someone to reassure me.
Yeah.
I don't know, sometimes I just really question what I'm feeling. So I never tell anyone about it because I just don't want them to tell me I'm being stupid or overreacting. But it sounds really silly, sometimes all I just want is a hug.
You deserve a hug. You deserve a hug and you deserve to have your feelings validated. You deserve that care. Yeah, I want to support you together. It makes so much sense. It makes so much sense why the zipped up part of you has been stepping in. Because you were told that your feelings were wrong. So of course that part is hiding your feelings so that you're not told that they're wrong, you're not punished. But you're not going to be punished here for sharing your feelings with me.
I'm sorry, it's too much.
It's not too much. Not too much for me. It's a privilege to be able to support you with your feelings. I want to be here for you.
Okay. Okay, feels nice to me. It's definitely scary, but yeah, okay. I trust you. I know that I can trust you, so thank you.
I wonder what those fears are. Letting that zipped up part go. Connecting more with these vulnerable feelings. What you're scared of. What I can support you with.
I guess I don't really know how to talk about it when it's hard. I don't know that what I'm feeling is okay. I just want someone just to understand, I guess. That word I really like, was it? Kind of validation, is it?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Like someone just to validate how I'm feeling. That would help, I guess. Just a bit of support with it all.
So that sounds like some practical stuff would be helpful in terms of how to find the words to share with me or share with Emma. On that note, I think you're doing brilliantly today, finding the words and sharing with me.
Yeah, it feels quite a lot, but yeah, no, it's okay.
Yeah, so we can help you find the words to share with your friends, the important people in your life, and also help you to validate yourself too. Working on that healthy adult so that you can recognise, of course, your feelings are valid. And they're important, and it's important that they're understood and heard by people.
Yeah, I don't know, I question myself a lot, Jo, so I mean, it would be good to know I'm not making a mountain out of a molehill.
You're not. These feelings are really important. Your feelings are really important. There's no feeling that's wrong. You can bring them here, and I'm here to support you, and you deserve that. You deserve to get care and support here and outside of our sessions, in your friendships.
Yeah, it'd be nice to believe that.
That's true.
Thanks, Kate.
Okay. So I'm just going to leave those steps up there. That was step 2 of chair work. So Jo just talked those through, and you saw a lovely demonstration of how Jo just went through those steps with me acting as Sarah, the client. So as Jo mentioned, you can do that as a standalone and finish at step 5, or you can integrate it into all 3 steps in one session, which is what we're showing you here today. I'll move on the slides. Okay. So as we go to the step 3 of chair work, where we begin that process of negotiation, where we're helping that protector mode to step back, connecting with the vulnerable child mode, and then bringing in the client's healthy adult mode to guide and review what unfolds. We want to start to really think about what we mean by healthy adult mode. Okay, so we're going to give you a bit of an opportunity to have a bit of a deep dive on what it is we're talking about when we talk about healthy adult mode from a schema therapy point of view. So a really useful way of thinking about the healthy adult mode is thinking it like a director on the stage of the self, thinking that its role is to manage the cast of all of the modes with balance and skill, bringing the vulnerable child mode to centre stage for comfort, listening to the angry child's mode's unmet needs, and setting firm boundaries with punitive and demanding critic mode voices when they might try and take control. So the healthy adult mode knows when to ask the coping modes to step aside. It can gently attend to the vulnerable child mode and also invite the client's happy child mode to express joy and spontaneity. But it's also got the authority to challenge and turn the volume down on those inner critics when they dominate. So in chair work, our goal in this final stage of chair work is to help the clients step into that directing role, beginning to lead the inner cast of modes with compassion, confidence, and balance as they reflect on what's been uncovered. Okay, so if we do a similar breakdown as we've done with the other modes we talked to you about, think about how the healthy adult thinks, feels, and acts. So in thinking about what it says, the inner voice says things like, I can handle this, I can get my needs met, indeed I deserve to get my needs met, I can connect with others. It speaks with confidence rather than criticism or avoidance. Emotionally, it feels content, competent, satisfied, and optimistic. Not because everything is perfect, but it trusts it can cope, it trusts it can learn, it trusts it can develop and grow. And the healthy adult, it acts in balanced and grounded ways. It validates itself, it expresses its needs clearly, it can assert boundaries, and it can take care of the individual's well-being. So in this mode, all adaptive schemes are available. And this allows the individual to recognise their needs, allows the individual to get those needs met in adaptive ways, where they can have empathy, autonomy, they can connect, self-acceptance, self-expression. And this is the part we're helping clients strengthen in step 3 of chair work. The mode that integrates the work, brings compassion to the vulnerable child mode, and is leading the way forward. This slide brings together the key features of healthy adult mode, which we're trying to strengthen in this step 3 of chair work. So the function of the healthy adult mode is to manage all of the other modes skillfully, meeting needs in balanced and adaptive ways. It soothes the vulnerable child mode, it listens and validates an angry child mode, sets limits with a critic mode, and it also allows a happy child mode to thrive. It's the mode that learns, that grows, and maintains a sense of self-worth. There are, of course, barriers to developing this mode. Things like a lack of healthy adult role models when the individual's growing up, maybe a fear of failure, or resistance to change because staying unwell might feel safer or it might feel more familiar. Clients might also struggle with low motivation or internal critical voices that tell them they don't deserve to get better. So through our schema therapy, we're going to be supporting clients to strengthen and grow their healthy adult mode, working on identifying these barriers and ultimately trying to overcome these barriers. So to access the healthy adult mode, we're going to invite clients to act as that stage director, guiding all modes with balance and awareness. That means centering and caring for the vulnerable child mode, listening to and validating the angry child mode's unmet needs, dismissing and turning the volume down on those critic modes, and letting the happy child mode express joy and spontaneity. And we know when that healthy adult mode is present, when the person is able to make balanced, skillful choices where they feel confident, they feel self-assured, they can maintain appropriate boundaries, and they can take responsibility for self-care. It's the mode that listens. It's the mode that learns and can lead with compassion, even when things might go wrong. So what does this third and final step look like? So when we move into step 3 of Chairwork with the protector mode, the shift focus to negotiating with a coping mode and connecting with a healthy adult mode for review. Using Chairwork, we start by inviting the client to address the coping mode directly, using an empty chair. We validate its positive intentions, and we recognise, it's been trying to keep the client safe. But we also highlight that in trying to protect it, there are some long-term consequences of its actions. Noticing how it blocks needs from being met, or it's keeping the client distant from others. Next, we check in with the vulnerable child mode. We explore how that part feels when the coping mode takes over. And this helps that client connect emotionally with what's being protected. We then move into negotiation, empathically confronting the coping mode about stepping aside. But while we're doing this, we're constantly checking throughout how it's responding and adjusting our approach as we're doing this negotiation. Once we've had some movement, once there's some movement around this, we start to reconnect with the vulnerable child mode, exploring any fears about letting go of that protection. And finally, we bring in the healthy adult mode to review the whole process, helping the client reflect on what's shifted and what they've learned. So I'm going to show you a final video role play with Sarah that's demonstrating this sequence here. So you can see how the therapist moves between the coping mode, the vulnerable child, and the healthy adult to guide that process safely and effectively.
Let's just share this video now.
So Sarah, I wonder if now I can say a few words to your zipped up mode.
Okay. So you're just going to speak to that?
Yeah.
I'll stay here?
You stay there, stay where you are. But I'm going to talk to that zipped up mode.
Okay.
Zipped up mode. I really appreciate the role that you've taken in Sarah's life. You've helped her endlessly when she was little, to protect her when she was feeling all of those really tricky, vulnerable feelings, and there wasn't anyone safe for her to share them with. So I appreciate that you've taken that role. But now, Sarah's telling me that she's feeling sad, she's feeling lonely at times, that she really wants to be understood. And when you jump in so quickly and you zip up all of those feelings, you stop other people from being able to support her and offer her care, to be able to understand her and offer her reassurance. And so I wonder whether we can find a way of you being able to step aside. I'm not asking you to fully disappear, but just think about how we can start to give Sarah a chance to get her needs met. Sarah, how's the zipped up, that detached part of you, how's it responding?
Zipped up's easier than detached protector,
It is, isn't it?
I think it's good to really recognise, its protection. That it's just trying to help me. So I think it's glad that, am I talking about it right?
Yeah.
It's glad that you're noticing that. I think though, because it does want to protect me, I think it recognises that I'm sad and I feel alone. So yeah, it's getting that. Yeah.
Okay, so it understands. What does it think about stepping aside?
I think it feels a little bit afraid.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel a bit afraid, but I think it makes sense. It makes sense to just try. A little bit though, because there are some places I wouldn't want to just for it not to be there. It wouldn't want to not be there. But I think it's is willing to try in some places.
I really appreciate that zipped up mode, that you're willing to try, and I don't want you to disappear completely and to leave Sarah showing those vulnerable feelings to everybody, because that wouldn't be safe. And there's certain people, particularly Sarah's mum and dad, they don't know how to manage feelings in a safe way. So I don't want you to disappear at those times that are really important. But I wonder if there are some circumstances, maybe in therapy here with me, where it would be okay for you to take a step back and allow Sarah to share some of her vulnerability here so that I can support her.
Yeah, I'm really pleased that you said don't have to do it for the mum and dad, because I definitely, it wouldn't be okay with that, I don't think. But I think doing it here, that's a really good thing to do. And I don't know, we were talking about Emma, I wonder with Emma a little bit as well, whether that would be, I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Emma's a good friend, isn't she? She's asking you how you feel, and she's there for you. She deserves a chance to be able to support you.
Yeah, so I think the detached protector zipped up bit, the zipped up bit, I think I can give it a go here. So when you ask me, I'll try. And I think it's okay to maybe give it a go with Emma, maybe.
So how does that little part of you feel? Remembering you're in that chair of the little part of you, little Sarah. How does little Sarah feel about the detached protector stepping aside? I'm doing it now. The zipped up mode, stepping aside. Perhaps a little bit when you're with Emma, a bit when you're here with me.
I think I feel a bit of relief, because I don't know. I know I got sad here, but it felt really nice when you were so understanding. And I guess I just walk around. I think what I've really realised is I just walk around a lot of the time pushing it down, and no one hears how I feel. So I don't know. It's really hard to talk about it, but it felt really nice that you understood and you said it made sense. Like hearing you tell me it made sense was really nice. So I feel a bit of relief that I might be able to start to do that. I was a bit scared, but I feel some relief.
I think you've done it brilliantly today, and I want to be here to support you.
Yeah,
you deserve that, and you can absolutely do this, and I'll be with you. I'll be with you every step of the way. We can work it through together.
Yeah.
And you've done fantastically today.
Thanks, Jo. Thanks.
Okay. Can I get you to move chairs? Okay, last time.
Okay.
Last move now. Just back to your original chair.
Okay, so in the middle here.
In the middle there.
Okay.
Okay, so now I want you to be that healthy adult part of you. Remember when we like feet flat on the floor, sit up straight.
Like I'm Superman.
Yeah. Shoulders down.
Okay.
Okay, grounding yourself. This healthy adult part of you.
Okay.
Yeah. How has this been today? You've done brilliantly. We've not done chair work before, and look, you've just whizzed through it.
Yeah, I mean, it feels a bit weird, but I mean, it's really helpful. Like, it feels really silly. Like, some of the stuff you just do, I don't know, there's something about moving that just helped me. I don't know, I know I do this stuff really unconsciously. Well, no, I do know I do it, but I hadn't really appreciated how automatic it is. And I hadn't really linked that doing that just makes me feel really sad, and how I guess it's keeping me stuck. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about how it just keeps me feeling like no one understands me, no one gets me. So yeah, I think doing that seemed to help.
And that was how you felt when you were little, wasn't it? That
Yeah.
nobody understood, nobody got you, because your parents, they just weren't able to give you space to feel the way that you felt. They were critical, they were dismissive, and now those feelings get reinforced in the present, don't they? You feel like you're not being understood, that nobody's there to listen to you or support you when the zipped up mode steps in.
Yeah. Oh,
there actually are people here, me and Emma, that want to support you,
Yeah.
want you to feel understood and validated, give you care.
I make it hard for you sometimes, don't I? Because you ask me how I am, and I'm just like, no, I'm fine, and we scrabble around, don't we, trying to think about what we're going to work on. So I must make your life difficult.
You don't make life hard for me at all. Like, it's such a privilege to work with you. And it makes sense why that part is here.
Yeah.
Of course, just because you're in therapy doesn't mean it's easy to talk about how you're feeling.
No, it's quite scary coming.
Yeah, but I wonder how we can notice that zipped up part coming in. Is there anything that you've kind of heard today from our discussions that would help you to know when that part is here?
I guess one of the things, I mean, it's really obvious, like now we're talking about it, but I hadn't really realised how much I do it until we were talking here, is that kind of breathe, like that breath in, I know I do it, and I also say, I'm fine. So, I don't know, maybe?
So noticing those, yeah. So breathing in, saying I'm fine.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that part of you is kind of doing that dismissing that your mum and dad used to do. So noticing those things.
Okay.
The breathing, saying I'm fine, really good clues that zipped up part is here.
Okay.
And so I wonder, in between this session and our next session, whether you can just notice that.
Okay.
So I don't necessarily want you to do anything different, just notice when that's happening. It's just that awareness of that zipped up mode.
Do you want me to write that? Remember I brought that notebook?
Great.
Do you want me to write down in the notebook when I notice
That would be brilliant.
the times I'm breathing in?
That would be brilliant.
Okay, and it's just like write what down is happening?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And then I would really like to support you to work out what are the words that I can say.
Okay.
How can I start to talk about my feelings with Emma? And so we can work on that in future sessions.
Okay, yeah, that would be good, because I think it feels like a big step to suddenly start doing it. So you don't need me to start doing that yet.
You don't need to start doing it yet. Let's take it one step at a time.
All right. Okay. I'll try and notice those times when I'm breathing in. Might be quite a lot, but I'll try.
And you don't have to write them all down.
Okay.
You know, a couple of examples would be great.
Okay.
But it's just about that noticing. Then you start to become aware that the zipped up mode is coming in. And once you're aware of it, then we can do something about it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah?
Okay, I'll give it a go.
Well done, you've done brilliantly today.
Thanks, Jo.
So, I don't think we need to share the slides again, Kate, because it's just opportunity for people to ask any questions. I don't know if Kate, did you have a chance to have a look at the questions? I've had a look at a few.
I've had a real brief scan, but not in detail, so we can look at them together now.
Yeah, so if you, because you can't talk to us, the audience, you need to put it in the Q&A if you've got questions. But we've had a question from Laura Hans. Hello, Laura. It's nice to have you here. Laura came and joined us for a critic mode workshop, I think. Must be about 3 years ago. Nice that you have come. So Laura has said, is there any reason why the physical sensations of the vulnerable child mode are so intense when experienced as an adult in that mode? So there was a few things that were coming up for me when thinking about that. I guess one of the things I was thinking about was that if somebody that we're working with has had multiple difficult traumatic experiences, which is often the case, when they start to connect with their vulnerable child mode, they're connecting with multiple different experiences that haven't been processed. And so they're almost getting the emotions from all of those experiences all at once. And their coping modes and their critic modes have been stopping them from connecting and processing those experiences. And so all of a sudden they're kind of overwhelmed by everything. And the critic messages are kind of compounded with multiple experiences as well. So that was one of my ideas about why perhaps the physical sensations and the emotions are so intense when somebody does connect with their vulnerable child mode.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, Laura, and a great response, Joe. I think the thing I was thinking about was similar, Joe, but just I guess it's where the psychoeducation comes in really important, isn't it? When we're working with clients about why the vulnerable child mode can feel so intense when it's activated. And for me, there's a real opportunity to make the present past links. So thinking about those triggers in the here and now, and recognizing it's not just about the thing that's happened in the year here and now. It's like a button has been pushed that just loads it with the pain of the past. So those unmet needs in the past get activated in the here and now by the situation that's going on right now, but it's also bringing all of the pain and emotion that's associated with situations that were similar when the person was small and they didn't get their needs met back then. I often give the example of driving my car. When I stop at a junction and let somebody go and they don't say thank you to me, and that's often something that pushes my button. So in the here and now, it's not a big deal, is it? Just let the person go. Perhaps they weren't looking, or they weren't noticing. They just don't think to say thank you. But I know that sometimes I can respond in a really out of proportion way. I get really activated because it pushes one of my schema buttons. It's not just about what's going on in the here and now. It's loaded with the pain of the past. So that's psychoeducation around helping me people make that present past day links, which Jo did beautifully in those videos. When she was talking to Sarah about, it makes absolute sense why you would do this. When you were small and your mum and dad weren't interested, and then Emma's, asking you questions. It makes sense why you're zipping up in the here and now. Making those past present links is a really, really important way to help people make sense of why that activation is so strong.
And then that allows them to feel more compassion for themselves, doesn't it? So if they're experiencing all of these tricky emotions and they're recognizing I'm being triggered in this moment, and actually my emotional and physical response is out of proportion to what's going on here, that's because there's multiple events that are being activated. And so when we can help people to understand that, it's not just the now that's being triggered, it's all of those past experiences too, then they can, that opens up a possibility of feeling more compassion for the self. Like, okay, it makes sense why I'm overreacting here. Actually, I'm not overreacting. I'm feeling the emotions of many, many events that are being triggered. So there's been a couple of questions. I'll just answer a question on the recording. So there will be a recording available. So this is live streaming to YouTube. So straight away there'll be a YouTube recording available. But I'm going to get all of the videos up to shape and share them with you next week via email. So do look out for a link to be able to access it that way. And I think a few people are struggling to access the Dropbox, so I will think about another way of sharing the slides as well if I can. So if we just take one more question and then I think we go to lunch. So there was an interesting question from Catherine, who was saying that I'm working with somebody in a custodial setting who I suspect is often in detached protector mode, or perhaps detached stimulator. Or detached self-soother maybe, which is a mode that they've never heard of before today, as he will use drugs upon experiencing anything distressing, upsetting, stressful. But when I then try to speak to him about this coping strategy, he denies that he has purposefully used drugs and states that he has been spiked, which isn't the case. So is this denial a further manifestation of detached protector? Could you use Chairwork in addressing this in any way? So, did you come up with any ideas, Kate?
It's a great spot. I think you're absolutely right, Catherine. I think there is a detached protector going there, and noticing that pattern that whenever something distressing or upsetting or stressful going on, it seems to be that your client is using drugs. And I agree with Jo. I think that's probably the subtype of a detached self-soother. So using stimulants to try and disconnect from the emotions. So I think it's a great spot you've noticed that, and you can absolutely work with that in Chairwork. I think you've got a tricky overlay because there's denial about the fact that they're actually doing it. And there are a few different ways you could work with that. I think I mean, there's clearly some defences there, and I wonder if there's some shame around the coping behaviour, which potentially, I don't want to confuse you because I know some of you have only just been introduced to schemas and modes, but I wonder if there's some real strong critic mode activation about using that way of coping with emotions. So that could be something interesting to explore. But I think what I'd first start with is just trying to understand the triggers. So it looks like you can see there's some distressing, upsetting, and stressful situations going on which lead to drug taking. And I would just start with working with that and noticing that and understanding that and trying to make that link, making the link that it seems that you're distressed and then this happens, and just being curious about that. I think that's where I'd go to begin with.
And I think there's something about that, isn't there? Validating that and being curious about that distress that helps to build the therapeutic relationship. Because I wonder how safe it feels for the person that you're working with, Catherine, to share that they're taking drugs when they're in a custodial setting as well. It might not feel very safe, and so they might need that safety of the therapeutic relationship to start being able to open up about what's going on. And I think Chairwork provides a beautiful way of us being able to talk to parts of ourselves that maybe we struggle to admit that we've got, that maybe we feel a bit ashamed of the way that we're coping, because we're sort of externalizing that part, we're validating that part, we're recognizing, and we always start with the validation. It's really important for people to feel understood and understand that these are survival strategies and they're there for a reason. And by validating and understanding, that starts to kind of flex up somebody's capacity to be able to look at the strengths and weaknesses of that way of coping. So I would say, in our example, Sarah was being lovely and compliant and went along with all of the steps. And, the reality is often quite a bit different to that. It would take a long time to work up to being able to do that sort of exercise to that extent. And so it's sort of slowly, little steps, but the limited reparenting and really strengthening that therapeutic relationship is always a really good start to addressing behaviours that somebody's struggling at this point to be able to recognise.
Absolutely. And it's a good point to make, isn't it, Jo? We do these role plays in a really compliant way just to be able to work through the steps. I think the reality is when you first start to do this stuff, often clients don't engage in the way that you see it in the step-by-step process. And that's not because you're failing, it's just because, those modes do show up in a really strong, resistant way. So I think just hold that in mind when you start to step into doing some of this work, if that's where you end up going, that it doesn't always look like it is in the textbooks. We show you that for learning and for training. And I was playing a very compliant client for Jo, which I think is useful for the purposes of today. I was also wearing a different shirt. It looks like I'm wearing the same shirt. I'm not. I do have more clothes. This is different. But yeah, playing a compliant client there, I think sometimes it doesn't always go in the step-by-step process we've shown you.
Yeah. So Kate and I have got the core schema therapy training coming up. We have 2 cohorts a year, so we start again in March and then again in September. We've got some spaces open for that, so if you would like to find out more about our training, then please do visit our website, which is www.schematherapyworks.co.uk, and send us a message. And thank you so much for listening to us today and hearing about Chairwork. I hope it's given you some exciting ideas around how Chairwork can be used within your therapy.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks for joining me.
Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Bye. Bye, Kate. Okay, so I'm trying to remove Kate's spotlight. There we go. So what I'm going to do now, because we're still having a couple of issues with sharing sound, I'm going to close the webinar for lunchtime. So we're going to come back at 1:30, and I'm going to close the webinar, and I'm going to have a go at seeing if I can reset Zoom to share the sound more efficiently. But if not, then I'll carry on in the way that I have been. So please do press to join the webinar again using exactly the same link that you had before. And I look forward to sharing this afternoon's programme with you We've got a session on imagery with Tara and Louise. We've also got a session on the healthy adult and our panel discussion about applications of schema therapy. So it'd be great if you can join us this afternoon. Go and enjoy a break for lunch, and I will see you again at 1:30. Okay, bye.